Hello and welcome to Tell Great Stories, the podcast that looks back at some of Unbound Theatre's past projects and productions. And we've reached the end of the series. So we are finishing the way we started by having a chat to three of the longest serving members of the company. You just heard one then. Who are you?
Hello, I'm Dario. I'm the creative producer of Unbound.
Hello, I'm Erika and I'm an actor and director.
Hello, I'm Gareth and I act, direct and write for Unbound.
Right, welcome all. Having reached the end of the podcast series, how has everyone found it, revisiting so many past projects? Was there stuff you'd forgotten? Have you all survived?
I've survived. I'm still about here, just about. I was just going to say, it's been a lot of fun, and then kind of listening to other people talking about certain shows, and then it sparks a memory of what we were doing. And I think actually, I don't think it actually made it into the show because it happened. It was after Beauty and the Beast, and we'd finished all the questions and everything, and we were obviously still online doing a bit of a chat because we hadn't spoken to each other for ages. And then all of a sudden we started reminiscing about stuff in the show and bringing back lots of memories, which probably wouldn't necessarily have been that interesting to any podcast listeners. But for us, it was actually really lovely to be able to meet up again, especially after so long, and have like a really good chat and kind of get together. And I think that's one of the best things that I've loved about doing these is listening to people and finding out about their memories. And I think I mentioned this to Dario as well when we did the Funny Voices one, listening to lots of other people talking about me was really, really lovely. I got a little bit emotional when the rest of the cast started saying, "Oh, Erika did this," and it was like, "Oh, thank you all so much. That was really lovely."
That's lovely.
So it's been really, really lovely. Anyway, I'll shut up now because I'm waffling again.
No, it's only the start of the podcast. We need more. Gareth, what about you?
Yeah, it's been great sort of getting, all the people involved and sort of finding what everyone sort of thought about all of the different projects and what their memories of it were as well. Because, we've involved quite a few people now in the podcast, and that's been kind of, great hearing from everyone and hearing everyone's memories, what everyone's highlights were from the project, and just getting a chance to sort of say, let's talk about some of the past stuff and find out what everyone thinks and what everyone liked, etc.
It's been good to kind of have a record of all this stuff. Now it's there in podcast form, because if you put two members of Unbound or two theatricals in a room, they will start anecdoting at each other. And
I have no idea what you mean.
So it's quite nice that there's now on the record all these little behind the scenes stories and little insights and stuff. There's now a record of them, because I was thinking the other day about dear old Matt Dougherty, who's sadly no longer with us. I mean, he'd have been incredible on these things. Heavily edited, I expect. Most of his anecdotes were obscene. But it's sort of one of the great sadnesses when he died is that no one ever got a chance to write down all of his stories, of which he was, brim full of them. So it was always kind of a bit of a loss. We thought, oh, no one's ever written down those hilarious anecdotes from when he was a postman and when he worked in I think he worked in a wine merchants and stuff. And so you always sort of think, you kind of want to make sure you've got a record of everything before it's too late. So it's nice that it's good that we can something to listen back to in years to come.
Something that another thing that we haven't covered actually in the series is how Unbound came into being in the first place. So can you tell us what led to the company forming in 2014?
Yes, the reason we haven't really covered this is because it is a bit of a long story, but I will truncate it. It's like all things, it wasn't particularly one thing or another or simple, but I think the impetus for it was the pantomime we did the year before, actually, which was 2013. And it was a show called Robin Hood and the Babes in the Woods, which Gareth was in. It's the first time we worked together. And in-house theatre by that point, it had a very long and colourful and prestigious history at Queen's Park. But it had kind of got to the point where the pantomime was pretty much the only thing that Queen's Park was doing every year, aside from maybe a play now and again, which would effectively be an outside company coming in, of a local amateur group coming in and using the space to rehearse and perform. There wasn't kind of that drive forward, because all these things come in, peaks and troughs, and sometimes it's busy, sometimes it's not. And it was going through one of those not busy periods, but the pantomime was happening every year. But the problem is, if you're only doing one show, when you come around to do it, you're trying to get hold of actors who are the rest of the year working with different companies elsewhere, and they're, naturally quite loyal to them. So you're trying to convince actors to come away and work with you. And the general feeling amongst the staff at Queen's Park was, if we were doing this more regularly, it would be a lot easier to get hold of people, and it would just, we'd have more people to work with, we'd attract more set painters and costume makers, and it needs to have its own little industry, really. And it kind of grew from there, and there were various people involved. I'd sort of just started at Queen's Park. I was volunteering, and I ended up being the stage manager of Robin Hood. And being a writer, I was really interested because I thought, that would be an exciting opportunity to get to write something for the stage. There was Nikita Ferguson, who was the centre manager at the time, and she directed a couple of plays at Queen's Park and had a bit of a theatre background, and she was really keen to see it get going again. And Claire Dargavel, who was a duty manager and a limelight technician at Queen's Park and had been involved in theatre years before, so had the sort of knowledge of what it had been about a decade before. And we kind of thought it was like a little select committee, a little sort of steering committee, really encouraged by Sarah Lewis, who's Queen's Park's artistic director. She could kind of see that we all thought it would be a good idea and really galvanised it and said, right, get together, have a meeting and get going. So we started having conversations about how would it work. Do you go back to it being just a sort of a group that you hold open auditions for? Do you have a subscription service, membership, that sort of thing? We went all through the houses, and then we decided the way we would kick it off is to bring back workshops, because there had been a very popular weekly workshop for adults for drama, which had kind of been the core of the company in previous iterations. So we decided to bring that back because it hadn't been there for a while, and to bring creative writing back because we knew new writing was going to be important to whatever this thing turned into. And we started putting it together. I was recruiting writers for the workshops. Nikita started recruiting tutors for the drama workshops. Erika came back onto the Queen's Park. And we launched it in September 2014, basically as a workshop program, saying that there's some new workshops, come along, take part, and it will grow into productions. And we had sort of ideas that we were going to do Betrayal as the first one the following year, and Beauty and the Beast as the first Panto work was on those. And then it just basically snowballed over the last seven years. The other thing I remember about putting it together was the name, because there was it went on for ages, months, trying to work out what we were going to call it. And the one thing was that we were just going to call it the Queen's Park Theatre Company, but I always thought that sounded like something that ought to already exist and it wouldn't feel new. And one of the big things was about attracting new people and making it feel like it was something that was just starting, even though it's, we weren't reinventing the wheel. In-house theatre, as I say, had been around for a long time, but we were kind of trying to encourage people who hadn't been involved before to get involved. But we couldn't think of a name. None of us could come up with one. So we ended up calling it Queen's Park Players because we all hated it. And we thought, if we call it something we really don't like, we'll have to think of a better title. And what happened was about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks of everyone in the Queen's Park office just sort of sat working, doing their normal day job. And then occasionally someone would sort of shout out something like, handmade theatre, what about that? And we would all go, no, come on that. And then sort of, half an hour later, someone else would shout out another idea. And we went through all these different names. And it got to the point where I think I was just sat on Google typing in words that I thought were sort of applicable and then looking up synonyms and then just shouting them all out, and then everyone would take a vote, and we've eventually settled on Unbound.
Wow.
I don't remember what the word was that got us to Unbound, but it was the whole idea that it wasn't...
Yeah, what could we have been called if Google Thesaurus was a bit...
Who knows? I just type Unbound into Google and find out. I can't remember now, but it was the whole idea behind the name was that, again, it wasn't beholden to the way things had been done in the past, and it wasn't just for people who were already at Queen's Park, it was for anyone. But yeah, that took, I think, about 2 or 3 months to come up with a name. If you go back, one day we'll publish this, there's a document that says, I think I wrote it, which was like the project proposal for what the company would be when we decided to sort of pool our ideas. And in it sort of says, what we're ultimately aiming to get to is to be able to do 3 productions a year.
Oh,
excellent.
Those dizzy heights.
maybe 3 major productions and 3 small ones, like 3 black box ones. We thought maybe 6 would be the absolute stretch. Now it's 2 a month. or something like that.
At
So,
least.
3 a year.
Yeah. Oh wow. I've just put Unbound into Google, and so far it's come
what
up
are the other options?
loose. Not sure we like that.
Loose theatre.
Yes,
Hello.
loose theatre. Unstapled. Interesting. Ungagged. Ungirt. Does anyone like that?
Ungirt.
Yeah.
Ungirt
Yeah.
theatre.
Or unstitched. So we could have done nude theatre. So we've got a few options there if we ever want to change it up. Unbound, I mean, you've mentioned, Dario, that it's just one of a long history of in-house theatre that they've had at Queen's Park Arts Centre. So, Erika, as someone who has been involved in a great deal of it, can you tell us a bit about the start of the Limelight Theatre and the productions that followed?
Just a bit, because remember what Dario warned you about, when you get actors together and they're always chucking out anecdotes. We could be here for a while. So yeah, no, I will.
Not necessarily a show by show account. But...
Yes.
No, I won't do all of the shows.
Okay.
At least. So a very sort of brief history of Theatre Unbound for anyone who doesn't know. My late mother started the in-house sort of drama workshops way back in at the centre when it first sort of started in the 80s, and she was working alongside Malcolm Thackeray and also Stuart Thornley, and one of the first shows that was done in sort of an empty Limelight Theatre when it was just still a school hall with the parquet flooring. There's a fantastic photo, I think, of a dance class there, and there's nothing else in it. You can still see the old office from the other end that's now behind the cyclorama. And I still remember when that back wall wasn't there as well. God, that's going back years. Anyway, so it was an anthology show of music, poetry, dance and drama, and it was kind of done to local council bods and to show them what the potential of Queen's Park could be. And they were impressed, and they said, "Here, have some money." And then the rake and the gallery was built. There were a few names that were bandied around. One was Cygnus, the swan being the logo of Buckinghamshire. So because the Limelight is so small, the little theatre of Buckinghamshire. So one name was Cygnus. The other was Matchbox, because of the game how many things can you put inside a matchbox? Again, it's teeny tiny, and it has the possibility and the potential for all of these things to be inside it. And then the other one was Limelight, and I think there was Stuart Thornley and my mum as well. They were all sort of talking about these names, and they came up with the Limelight, which is sort of reference to the old sort of Victorian gas lamps that you would have at the bottom of the stage. And from there, production sort of grew. Pete Benson started the Panto in 1984 with Cinderella, and he was very much a driving force for in-house theatre as a writer and a director and a teacher as well. He was definitely a mentor of mine when I was growing up. But the ethos behind the in-house stuff has always been, it was never like a sort of like a traditional Amdram company where you pay your subs and it's the same people, or like a group of people who come together. Every single company for every single show has always been unique. It is the net has been cast wide, and obviously you do get familiar faces coming back, and then some people may go away and then they'll come back again, but the ethos has always been a new company, a brand new company for every single production, and also the amalgamation of professional actors working alongside community actors. I think I was very, very lucky. I cannot thank the opportunities that I had when I was growing up, in the fact that when I was a kid, a lot of my memories are sitting in the wings watching professional actors do their stuff, and so much learning going on from that. And then when I was old enough and starting to join in with the shows as well, again as a kid, and then growing up through my teenage years, and I was practically living down at the centre, and Pete had the fantastic in-house adult drama workshop. We'd have about 40 people there each week producing off-the-cuff stories, comedy, physical theatre, some really epic heavy dramas, and this was just in like a 2-hour workshop every single week, really, really pushing the boundaries of what is possible in theatre, just using yourself as an actor. And again, it was a mixture of professionals and then up and coming students, teenagers, and people who were interested in really learning their craft, and that sort of carried on. So, the production, the kind of productions, everything from like musicals. I remember some fantastic productions, not only of all of the pantos, but things like the Threepenny Opera, Godspell, and then massive community ones as well, that were able to kind of really sort of bring people in. And then, of course, in sort of like the late 90s, when there was the possibility of everything sort of being shut down, and the last production was essentially going to be Arthur Miller's The Crucible, which again was directed by Pete. And word got round, and we did 3 nights, I think, and we did a Sunday night. And at the end of the final night, people were so desperate to come and see it. We had people sitting on the floor of the stage, and before health and safety rules all came in about fire regulations and stuff. So we had everything. The gallery was packed. The rake was packed. We had chairs, extra sets of chairs were put out, and then we had people sitting cross-legged on the floor of the stage. And I remember coming out for my first entrance and going, oh, bloody hell, I can't go downstage, there's people there. And yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. And just all of the different kinds of people who are still around. Some of them are still around, and then others have gone on to do other things. And seeing that continue, that legacy continue with everything that Dario has kind of infused into it, has been absolutely wonderful. We've had people who've worked on Panto who are now off at drama school, and they're doing their own theatrical careers. For Sleeping Beauty, we've just had our auditions, and we've got some wonderful fresh faces, again, new people coming into the company who again can just like start their journey on wherever they want to go, and it's fantastic. And so I've had a lot of personal pride and about seeing everything that Unbound has done and grown to over the last 7 years, and knowing the legacy of everything that I have grown up with, and seeing that continue has just been, it's been phenomenal. I can't even explain it. It's absolutely incredible to be a part of that. And so when Dario invited me not only to come back as a workshop leader and then also as an actor, absolutely delighted. It's been amazing.
I mean, that brings us nicely up to date. So, I mean, my next question was about Unbound's recent project. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about Tudor Tales, which you guys revived at Wadston Manor this summer. Dario, how did that come about? How did the performance come about for Tudor Tales? And Gareth, what was it like revisiting the show?
And getting there it was kind of the culmination of lots of discussions that had gone on between Queen's Park and Wadston for I think a couple of years, not related to Unbound, but in a wider sense of the outreach work that Queen's Park was doing, had been doing for several years. But a result of that relationship, the working relationship that had been established, we were able to suggest bringing Unbound to Wadston, and they were really receptive. They were really keen. So we planned to go there in summer 2020 as part of the Shakespeare tour, and then I can't remember why we didn't go. I think
No, don't know.
Something came up. I can't remember. It didn't work out, so we didn't go. But we kept in touch with Wadston, and they were very keen to have us back in summer 2021. And we weren't working on a Shakespeare tour that year just because of the way things worked out with restrictions. We didn't think there'd be enough time to do it properly. But we said, well, look, we could do a shorter piece with a smaller cast. That would be something we could get ready in time. And so we suggested Tudor Tales, which we'd done at Bucks County Museum, I think 2 years by that point previously. And and they were very receptive. They thought it was great. And so along we went.
And yeah, from my point of view, I've always had quite a soft spot for Tudor Tales because in its original form, it was just this nice little 30-minute piece. And the first time we did it at the museum, it came together at a time when there was loads going on with Unbound. It was difficult to keep track of everything, so many projects, quite exhausting. And then we had this little thing, Tudor Tales, which was just this nicely formed, really funny, really fun piece. And we got all the cast together, and it was, just everyone was on the ball. They had it. They were really easy to work with on it. And it just sort of came together in this really nice way the first time we did it. And then we obviously revived it for the 24-hour show, where we added basically an extra half an hour onto it, turned it into a sort of 50-minute, hour-long show. And again, revisiting it then was great because it brought back all these memories of, that was a great show. It was a great way of working, brilliant casts, just came together so smoothly. And I felt gutted that we couldn't do the extra bits properly. So then hearing that we're bringing it back at Wadston Manor and we're going to get to properly bring all these bits to life, like the scene in the war with France where you've got all of the business with the cheese and you've got the pom-poms waving about and you've got Ferdinand and Maximilian and he's knocking Maximilian's hat off his head. All those little bits of business sort of came back, which was absolutely brilliant to sort of see those. And yeah, the even the sort of more stressful bits, like the quick changes of the queens.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Even those, it was just it was brilliant to see those back and going, here's this thing that could be an absolute nightmare and really complex. But by the time we'd got it down, I mean, there was a few back and forth bits in the early stages of the rehearsals, but by the time we'd really got it nailed, again, you thought, this is something that could be really complex, but we've sort of boiled it down. We've now got it sorted and we got it down pat that we can even make it work when one of the dresses suddenly loses a zip halfway through the last performance.
Gaffer tape and safety pins.
And of course, Katie, you were in that production, and sort of what are your memories of it?
I remember. We were really lucky actually because we were supposed to. Well, it was lucky to do it and bring it back because it's a really fun one to do. It was one I really enjoyed doing anyway. And we got to work on the scenes a bit more, which is always good. You get to work on things and work out a bit of the sort of physical humour and bits and pieces like that and work with like this little group of people, which was really fun. And then we were supposed to do it, I think, one weekend, and it was forecast to be showers and thunderstorms, and they not only moved our weekend, but they also moved us. So we ended up doing it in front of Wadston Manor. So you've got these wonderful photos of sort of Wadston Manor in the background, and then our little Queen's Park Arts Centre tent, Unbound Came, just in the foreground. But it's brilliant. It was a really good one to do with the backdrop of Wadston Manor as well, because obviously you're playing kings and queens and, you know, these big fancy people. You get to wander around in these magnificent costumes all the time. And yeah, it was lovely because we had a really good crowd. I think, you know, it was mid-school holidays. People were trying to find something to do with the children, and they'd come along to Wadston Manor, and then they sort of went, oh, you know, we'll sit here and watch that. And the feedback was lovely. There were lots of people who came over afterwards and said, oh, you know, my kids really enjoy it. They keep talking about it. You know, thank you very much. So yeah, it was lovely. It was a really... Yeah. And the sun came out. I remember it was absolutely pouring about an hour before. And I thought, we've rehearsed for ages. We've had one lockdown. We've rehearsed some more. And now we're not even going to do it.
Yeah.
And then it was just beautiful sunshine. And the sun came out. And then I had to put on those stupid costumes for the Queens again. With no zip.
And I think it was one of the... probably one of the only times where after the performance you've got random parents coming up to you saying, can we take a photo of like our kids with the cast?
I know, it was a bit like that bit of the wedding where they sort of get all the family together to get a photo, and then everybody else comes up with their phone in the background so that they can take the same picture. So it was that Dario was trying to take a photo of us in front of the big house, and suddenly there were like 4 different families behind going, oh, can my child be in the photo? Just kind of ushering them in. Like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Do you want me to sign anything? Yeah, not a problem.
It was really sweet. My main memory of doing that was we loaded everything into like a little convoy of cars to take up there. And I remember they sort of said we'd been told that you can perform in front of the house. Oh, that's very exciting. And sort of expected that we'd need to park in the car park and then walk everything up. And they said, no, just let the guy at the gate know and he'll just wave you up there, go up and drop your stuff off. And so there we were. I think Gareth, you and I were in one car at the front, just driving up to Wadston Manor. I just remember laughing my head off because it was just the most ludicrous thing in the world. Like, I just drive to work at Wadston Manor.
Yeah, and like they had the roundabout before it and the sort of grand gates, and then this great big long gravel driveway with sort of the grass on either side as you're going towards the manor. You think, yep. This is how you arrive. And then we get out a load of bin bags full of coffee.
I mean, and none of us have got particularly flashy cars either. So it was like we should have rented a really nice car. That was awkward. None of us have got good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
fun though.
Yeah, We've played worse gigs.
Yeah, I almost wish my car had broken down, so we'd have to call out the AA and say, "Where are you?" Well, I'm at Wadston Manor. I'm in front of the manor.
That would be amazing. I feel like Wadston Manor security at that point would come out, Gareth, if you were just there hanging around your car.
Yeah.
Did you ever get some kind of like BBC costume drama soundtrack like playing in your head as you see the vista of the big house in front of you and you're driving up there?
Yeah, as you're pulling up to it, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, I think there should be some sort of soundtrack.
But there were a couple of times I think I went to the toilet or walked somewhere else, and I suppose because people could tell that you weren't just there looking at the house, probably because you were on your own, they'd ask you directions, so it was almost like you were working for Wadston Manor.
Yeah, they thought we worked there.
Yeah, do you know how much is it to get in? Oh, it's this much. I don't know, I'm just going to make up a number. Yeah, come this way, come over here. Why don't you stop by this small tent over here where there's going to be a tight production in about half an hour? Yeah, it was lovely though.
Oh, that was part of the day, wasn't it? Was sending people around to kind of drum up a crowd.
Oh yes, Andy Faber went round as our bard and did a fantastic job. He did brilliantly. He went in and really drummed up a lot of business, and I remember standing with him at one point. He went, "Oh, that's my old drama teacher, Diction," and then went in and did this fantastic speech about how they should all come and see us in the production. Rob and I wandered round as Henry VIII and a wife, and just in the background I'd smile and he'd sort of look disappointed, and that was about it. But yeah, it was lovely. Got people to kind of turn up.
It was very funny. I think Dan had gone off to the loo just before the show, and when he left, there was no one stood anywhere near our tent. And he said, I came back and there was like 100 people there. This sort of massive crowd came in as he sort of rocked up, going, "Oh, okay."
I know, that was lovely.
There's a lot of people. It was good fun.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was good. The kids enjoyed it, I think.
Oh yes, yeah. So did we.
Yeah, true.
We amused ourselves.
Right, so we have also not only that, but there are a few projects that we have not had a chance to mention in the podcast so far. So we're going to try and cover them in a quick fire round. People ready?
Fingers on buzzers.
Well, no. I'm going to ask for a quick summary or anecdote about each of the following. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Dario, A Doll's House.
Yes, so 2017, that was the first show that Beatrice directed for us, Butch Benedek, and that was done entirely in black and white. So everything, the set and the actors were painted like in grey paint to make them look like they're in a monochrome film. Apart from at the end when Nora, comes on and is leaving Torvald, I want to say. I don't know the play very well. And she's
Sounds
in full
right.
colour. She took her makeup off and was in a really brightly covered clothes. And so it looked incredible. That was a beautiful show.
Oh, okay. Gareth, Full Staff, An Evening with the Fat Knight.
Well, this was, of course, the show that we did in the local pub. And we sort of did it, most people knew there was some sort of show happening, but there were clearly some people who were just at the pub as well. And we had, some rehearsed scenes we were going to do that were all from, the Shakespeare plays that involve Falstaff. But while the scenes was going on, you were still sort of in character wandering around, kind of going, do I interact with people? Do I make this kind of mini scene? So you're sort of, you got one ear on what's going on, going, okay, it's my actual scene in a minute. But for the moment, hello, King over there. I'll just have something to say with you as well.
Erika, 5th anniversary show.
Oh, that was mental putting that back together and then revisiting scripts, and it was wonderful to kind of look back on other things. And I think one of my biggest memories was the set on that one, which Dario had filled with props and and costumes from all of the previous shows, and walking out and going around going, oh, I remember that, and oh, didn't we use that on that as well? So yeah, fantastic.
Dario, 2018 Drama Festival.
King nightmare to schedule. You'll have to bleep that. That was one of the high points of busyness, because we were doing that and Antigone and Marvin's Room and the 4th sketch show at once. So I remember that being a bit of a turning point, realising how big the company had gotten. But the event itself, it was 6 different slots across 2 days, and there was leave and some improv, which we've discussed before on the podcast. We did 2 episodes of a Radio 4 sitcom called Welcome to Our Village, Please Invade Carefully. We did a play called Enter a Queen, which is a rather unfortunate title, and we did a play called Modern Art, which was a new piece written by a chap called Joe Laredo. And what I remember from that one was that it involved Rob having to sweep up a pile of leaves from the floor, dumping them on a podium, and then sweeping them off the podium into a dustpan, and then putting them on the floor again, and then repeating it over and over for I think about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yep.
Which was because he was part of it. He was a living exhibition in a modern art gallery or something. So I just remember him doing that for 10 minutes for no reason.
Right, Gareth, I might pronounce this wrong. Corridon Ovium?
Yeah, so this was Unbound's sort of horror show that we did in... it was written by Jen and Sandy. I don't remember their surnames, but they kind of came in with this show that they had written and they were going to direct. It was great to play a proper nasty character in a couple of them, because it was proper horror. It was sort of there were funny bits of it, but it was clearly done to be sort of, this is actual horror that's going on. So you got to play a proper bad guy with kind of none of the, he's a sort of Panto-esque bad guy, or he's, don't worry, he's not really mean. It's like, no, this is proper baddie. Which I think was my first chance to really play that sort of, evil character.
Oh. Erika, Halloween Tales.
Oh, this had a fantastic performance by Matt Black as our sort of MC of the evening, and he had this sort of fantastic skeletal makeup and fantastic gothic outfit, and he kind of led through all of these different stories, and we had poetry and songs and then short stories, and I think one of my biggest memories of this one was the fact that we had stories written especially for this show by sort of well-known published horror writers in the horror scene, which was lovely. So I kind of put a shout out to a few sort of horror authors, and then a couple of them got back and said, "Well, yeah, I'd love to write for you." So that was, I think, a great feather in our cap that we got some completely original work from some internationally recognised horror writers for that show.
Dario, Voices of the Great War.
That was 2018 again, and that was something we were asked to do by Bucks Archives, I think, as part of their centenary celebrations or commemorations of the First World War. And it was a series of war poems and biographies of local servicemen, basically, that were kept in the archive. So we went and performed it at, I can't remember what it's called, it's the big church in Milton Keynes, I can't remember its exact name. And we were there as part of a wider event all about teaching people about the end of the First World War. So it's a real privilege to do that one, actually. It's a very moving show. And
Gareth, last but not least, Potted Panto.
Well, this was the sort of mini slapstick scene that we did down at the Waterside Festival. And we really went for it with the slapstick. There was, foam involved, and there was, the Rice Krispies on the face gag kind of thing. I just sort of remember, they had this stage set up that we kind of were performing in front of, and we had a small sheet down, but I remember at the end of the performance kind of looking round, and there was foam on the speakers, and foam had gone all over the floor, and of course we cleaned it all up, but it was just that moment after we'd finished when we'd gone, I hope they were expecting this to happen.
Yeah, I do remember having to go around with a towel after that. I believe wiping down some drums and other things as well, all over the place. I don't know how you got that everywhere.
They said they wanted 10 minutes of Panto Chaos. They got 10 minutes of Panto Chaos.
That's true. That's what they asked for. Well, there you go. Well done, everybody. That was very good.
Hey!
Okay, back to more recent projects. So, can you tell us a bit about the launch of the Storyteller Initiative and what events and performances the storytellers have been involved with so far?
Yes, I mean, we talked a bit before about where it came from and its origins in Pinocchio and the 500s contest, but we hadn't properly launched it when we talked about it before. So yes, it is now up and running. We're in the middle of training a whole load of new storytellers who are going through a sort of every other week they're coming in and learning bits about writing and about improv and about acting technique. So they're going to come and join us next year. And in terms of the projects, we've done quite a few, actually. We've been out to a few events and done some improvised storytelling 1-to-1 at, I think that was Whiz Fizz Fest and Live in the Park. And we've done some scripted stuff as well, with a story called Hidden Things, which was commissioned by Bucks Archives, and we performed there in July. And also something we've done a couple of weeks ago, which was the Gongoozler's Tale, which was a series of short stories inspired by the Grand Union Canal. And that was for the Waterside Festival team. And that was followed a week later by Spontaneous Stories, which was the debut of a brand new improv format, which Gareth will be able to explain.
Yeah, so it was actually yesterday as at the time of... Was it yesterday as at the time of recording? Yes, it was. Losing track of time there. No, but it was definitely yesterday as at the time of recording that we did our first Spontaneous Stories, which is a sort of fully improvised fairy tale that is created by the actors with a storyteller sort of on the rudder guiding it, but then the actors taking it forward based on the suggestion that has been given for it. And it was really great to sort of see that for its first time in front of a live audience and, see them really getting into it. And where you've got, like, I think we had a suggestion of a weird elf was our first suggestion for the main character of our first improvised fairy tale. And then you go on the whole story of how he's, needs to learn how to be a proper elf, and the orcs are invading, so he's got to get hold of some magical armor. But of course, the orc shamans are also after the magical armor. And I know at one point in it we had that the orcs were going to do a dance. And you just hear a kid in the audience shout out, "That's not how an orc dances." So then the actor who's portraying it goes on and says, "Oh, sorry, how does an orc dance?" And then they come back and do this really orc-like dance with all the claws and the gurning face, etc. So really good fun to sort of see that and prove that format works, which will be back later on in some of our improv offerings. We'll see that format again, definitely.
And Erika, you did the Hidden Things, which is pretty much the first thing we did with the storytellers, actually, I think, in terms of performance.
Yeah. So with the sort of like the Unbound storytellers, you've got like the improv team and the people who do the spontaneous stuff, and then we've also got this scripted side as well. And I think it's great that people are kind of able to play to their strengths. So I took the story that Dario had written that was from a prompt that we were given from Bucks Archives. So we got from a photograph, and then they'd done some research, and then Dario wrote this lovely little story. Then we were able to perform that at the Bucks Archives, which was really lovely to be able to do.
And lots more planned, hopefully. So we've been using this year to kind of pilot it and see how it goes, and it's gone down very well with people. So we've lots planned for 2022 as well.
Which is an excellent segue into my next question, Dario. Thank you very much. Which is talking about the future.
We've been doing this too long.
See? What projects are you most looking forward to in the remainder of this year and beyond?
I am very much, at the time of recording, we start Panto rehearsals next week.
Exciting.
I know. I am very much looking forward to bringing Beauty and the Beast to the Limelight stage. No, not Beauty and the Beast. Why can I not speak anymore?
Did that 5 years ago.
We did that. Oh, God. I'm going to try that again. So, I am very excited to be bringing Sleeping Beauty to the Limelight stage. Yay! In a couple of months. So yes, it's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. And we've got fantastic casts, and everyone's very excited about the story. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. And also, I am absolutely desperate. Beyond that, I'm desperate to be able to put my frock coat back on and go time travelling again as the Professor. I miss her. I want to do more. I do miss my Professor very, very much. So yes, I'd love to be able to do that in the future. That's my wish.
Excellent. Dario?
All the above. It's going to be exciting to get the live Shakespeare shows back again, which would be great, having had a couple of years off. So we're working hard at the audio project, the Complete Works. But plans are afoot for next year's tour, including a return to Waddesdon Manor. So that's going to be good. And yeah, any and all outreach work. I love going out and about, going to different venues. Whether it's places like Waddesdon Manor or Bucks Archives, or doing little walking things like the Cronomia place. So yeah, any of that, and again, there's lots planned. So it's going to be a fun year.
And Gareth?
Definitely looking forward to the return of the big Unbound sketchbook shows, as we have Sketchbook Show 6, Intergalactic Bailiffs, coming up very, very soon. So yeah, really looking forward to that. That's currently midway through rehearsals, and fingers crossed, looking pretty good. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. And yeah, with the proof that the improv format we're sort of developing is definitely a runner that we saw yesterday. Really looking forward to the big improv show in November and taking that further and sort of developing that even more and making it even more complicated with even more scenes and characters getting involved.
And finally, looking back at absolutely everything that Unbound has done in the last 7 years, what has been your funniest moment and what has made you the most proud?
I mean, I think what has made me the most proud, there's a couple of things. One of them is Tudor Tales. Like, as I said before, the way that just sort of came together so nicely and created this complete thing. And I think the other one would be it was on the day of the WizFizz Festival, where we did Unbound History of Britain. We did the storytelling competition, sort of reading out the stories there, and then we went and did Doctor's Dilemma, and I'm pretty sure we must have been rehearsing something else sort of nearby, and there was probably another show that was happening in a week's time after all of that. And yeah, just sort of looking at that day and kind of going, yep, I'm up at the start of the day going to one thing and we're setting that up and that's a success, and then you're rushing straight off to the next thing, and then you're off to perform something in the evening and thinking, not only can we do a lot, but all of it worked and all of it's really good. So that just made me really proud of being a part of Unbound there.
What about your funniest?
Oh, funniest moment. Oh, there's so many sort of funny moments. I mean, one that always sticks in my head is the very first sketchbook show with the door nearly falling over and sort of panicking and jumping across the stage to catch this door that's about to crush one of the actors, because it was a massive thing. And if it had gone, it would have been, that's properly gone if that's going. And I'm sort of, standing there looking at it from the other side of the stage going, if I'm going to get to that, I've got to visibly cross the stage, and weighing up in my head, is it worse to take the risk of it falling over or just bite the bullet and leap? And eventually chose to bite the bullet and leap.
I'm sure they're thankful for that, yeah.
A recent funniest moment is two coming from Rob. One, his brilliant shout of "What about Carol?"
Oh, I love that.
And of course, as you can hear in the Funny Voices podcast, or maybe I can't remember whether you can hear it in the Funny Voices podcast, but the fact that Rob couldn't remember the bottom half of Erika's face.
Oh yeah, that's hanging around for a while.
Yes.
And what about at the bottom half of Erika's face? What do you think?
What do I think?
What's your proudest moment?
My proudest moment, oh my goodness, there are so many. Just being involved, being asked to be involved, it always makes me feel terribly proud every time I walk out on that stage or every time I'm representing Unbound. So to be asked to do the first show, Betrayal, to doing the outdoor Aylesbury-on-Sea, the shorter shows that we did, Wind in the Willows and Treasure Island. But I think also I've mentioned it before, but The Professor is so dear to my heart, and I am immensely proud of all of the work that we've been able to do with her, both on stage and then also in the audio stories that we've done, which have just taken the character in an amazing story arc. So I am very, very proud of being able to bring her to life, I think.
I think those were received really well as well, weren't they, the audio ones?
They were, yes.
Isn't there some sort of award or something?
We were nominated.
Possibly.
We were nominated for writing, production, and performance as well, and we won the performance for sort of best new audio fiction. We won an award for that last year, so that's very, very proud.
Congratulations, very well deserved.
Thank you.
And what about your funniest moment?
I can't even remember why, but I just remember laughing my head off and having face ache and side ache through most of the Captain Christmas rehearsals last year, simply because of the sheer ridiculous and funness of it. It was an intensely funny. I couldn't point to any one particular thing, but I just remember standing there in rehearsals trying to say lines and then usually cracking myself up or seeing somebody else do something and giggling profusely with that. And then, as Gareth just said, I think it's got to be a top moment of what about Carol? Because the rest of you were off stage. But he actually said it to me, and I remember sitting there and thinking, in character, what is going on? Trying not to show my surprise in my face about who Carol was.
Did very well. I'd be like, who is Carol? Story of stage. What have you done to my mother?
But yeah, also with funny voices, the whole country made biscuits debacle, fiasco, shenanigans, that's the better word for it, was very, very funny as well. But there are so many moments. Us all getting slightly high on the fumes from the barrel that we used as the set for Treasure Island, because it was an actual rum or whiskey barrel. When we got in,
done.
we were in an enclosed space, and the fumes were lovely. And there's a fantastic photo of us all just sticking our faces in there, going, "Oh, that's so good."
Excellent. And Dario, what about you?
And the funniest thing I think I've ever seen, Unbound or otherwise, is it was during the dress rehearsal for the anniversary show, and we had an actor missing. They were ill. So, as is usually the case with Unbound, Lara stepped in at the last minute to cover, and one of the characters she had to play was Margaret Thatcher in a sketch from A Brief History of Britain, which was all about the 20th century. And instead of just reading it in, as she was with the other parts, she went and got into the costume and the wig, and then appeared next to me in the corridor, and I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know she was going to do that, and I honestly thought I'd injured myself from laughing because it was so wrong on so many levels, seeing Lara dressed as Margaret Thatcher, and yet it was just pure comedy. I mean, well, that's probably one of my proudest moments as well, actually, is getting Lara to dress up as Margaret Thatcher. But proper proudest moment. I mean, there are loads. Having sort of been there for the whole of it, things like going to Waddesdon Manor is really cool, because there we are, this thing we started, we're there in front of Waddesdon Manor. All of the lockdown work I've spoken about before, the sheer amount of stuff we did, and the way we kept everything going and kept the team together, and how important that was for Queen's Park. Actually, I think in sort of recent memory, the thing that's made me most proud is we're currently scheduling what we're going to do next year, circumstances allowing, obviously. And we've even started looking ahead at the next couple of years, because we are steadily working towards 10 years since we started Unbound. And as we've been working out the calendar and all the rehearsal schedules and stuff, it's just kind of sitting there and looking at it, at the sheer breadth of what's there that you can slot in every year, and how it's all kind of, all the different strands of it have become their own little bubble in Unbound, and they're all really established and really important and really exciting. So it's kind of, what's the next Shakespeare play, and when's the next improv show, and when's the next sketchbook show, and what's the next bit of new writing, what's the Panto going to be, and what outreach work are we doing. They all kind of have their own little threads. And going back to that document we wrote years ago that said, we hope we'll get to 3 shows a year, to kind of look at that and see what an industry it's kind of become within Queen's Park. This huge thing. There's not a week we're not doing something, and there's not a month where we're not doing at least one production, if not more. And there's audio, and there's bits of film. So I am enormously proud that from those kind of little tentative steps we took towards hopefully producing a play, we now have this kind of huge group of people powering all these projects through every year and doing them really well, and exciting times ahead. I'm really proud of that.
I think you've said something that is really important, is the people. We are so lucky in the fact that so many people who are part of Unbound, whether they've done one show or whether they've done several, everyone who's brought that commitment, that dynamic and enthusiasm and sheer passion to maintain theatre, to keep pushing everything forward. I think we're really, really lucky with that, and that's a testament to how Unbound works, how we invite people, and how we create. And it's the fact that everyone is so passionate about it, which is brilliant.
And that brings us to the end of the episode and the end of the series. So many thanks to all of you guys for joining me today, and all of the guests who've joined us for the whole series about Unbound's many and various projects. You can catch up on all the episodes of Tell Great Stories, plus lots of other great audio and video content at unboundtheatre.co.uk, or you can look us up at Unbound Theatre on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or SoundCloud.
Woo! Hey! There we go. And stop the recording.